Hello and welcome once again. I am Walt, and today we have a guest from Eleaf, and this is the latest in the Pico series. This is the Eleaf Istick Pico X. Let's get right to it. I'm going to start out with the accessories inside of the box, and I'm going to start with the user's manual. I found it to be a very nice user's manual. It was really handy. I was able to understand how to use it real well. One of the things that I really did like, if you can see this, okay, for part of the menu system, they give you a real nice pictorial breakdown. So, bravo. Quick start guide for the Atomizer itself, the Milo 4. Again, I was able to use it, worked well for me. Warning card about batteries. An attention card about using your Atomizer. A thing that I've seen in a lot of other Eleaf products and I have no idea what it is. Here we have some extra O-rings for the Atomizer. Here we have a spare coil. It's kind of like a mesh or a grate coil at a 0.15 ohm. And here we have a charging cable. I don't believe that this unit is capable of upgrade. I see absolutely nothing regarding that in the literature. Next up, the Addy. Okay, our Atomizer, the Milo or Mellow 4. Starting at the top, have a drip tip, standard 510 drip tip. Replace it with whatever you like. We see a little arrow right there on the top. It's a push to the side fill. You've got your fill port. That fill port is pretty small, especially with your bottles, your larger e-liquid bottles. You got to go slow. It's otherwise a bubble will collect in here and it'll just spew all over instead of filling the tank. So it's kind of a slow fill because of the small port here. Click that back into place. Airflow adjustment. Both sides. It's got a decent amount of restriction. Turns easy. Has stoppers to both sides. Here's our bottom. Center pin. Everything's clean on this. The machining's nice on it. Turn out the bottom. Glass is removable. There's our chimney. Pop our glass back into place. Like so many others, the coil head just unscrews. And there's our coil head and the receptacle. And there again, all the machining is real nice. It's nicely done. All the O-rings are real good. No leaking, no problems with it. All screws back together. Real nicely. Have no idea what those coils are made out of. Nothing says anywhere. So couldn't tell you. When I used it with temp control, I used another Addy. This is about a 2 mil Addy, and it does use some juice. The coils in there, although they're fairly low resistance, they heat up with a relatively low amount of power, so you can still get some battery life out of the mod. And the flavor on this is good. It is not the best of the best, but it's up in the top of the bunch. It gives a real nice, decent flavor. So next up, we'll take a peek at the mod. And here it is. From a side view, it says Eleaf. From a front view, we've got the charge port, we've got the screen, we've got the on and off button, firing button. You can see the firing button protrudes a little bit and it's concave. It's beveled around the edges. Real nice clicky feeling to it, and not you can hear the click, but as well as that, you can feel that click. So you definitely know when that switch is engaged and when it lets go. That's nice. On the other side, Istick Pico X. This is all rubberized finish, by the way, and you can see that it's all contoured through here. So that's a change up from the original Picos, which were pretty well flat in the sides, rounded on each end, but flat in the sides. The grip is real nice on it. It feels really nice in the hand. On the bottom, you've got your adjustment buttons up and down, and you've got some venting. And on the top, per the past, with the Picos, you've got your 510 connector. That is spring-loaded. It is bolted in. It's a very nice little 510 connector. The center pin is coated. Okay, because of the battery and the size of the thing, you're limited to a 22 millimeter Addy on this. Here's your cap for the battery. Screws off. Your battery drops down in there, plus end first. And they've got a little bar on there. Kind of looks like a negative sign. I guess that's to mark it as negative. And that's our mod. Real nice and simple. Real nice and small. Feels good in the hand. Let's navigate it next. This is how the mod came to me in wattage mode. And you've got the wattage shown here. You've got the resistance up there. You've got the battery indicator and the puff indicator under here. That's where it says 67p, the number of puffs you've got. In wattage mode, if you want to adjust that, of course you have the plus and minus buttons on the back. That shows you the length of your puff there. And you can just scroll up and down. Scrolls pretty rapidly. From 75 all the way down to 1.6. 0.1 increments. Until you get into the higher wattages, and then it goes into 1 watt increments. That'd be nice for the folks that do mouth to lung. Click it 3 times. Now we can change between wattage, bypass, temperature for nickel, titanium, stainless steel, and then 3 temperature memory sets. So I'm going to go into stainless steel. We'll click that. And you can see that right at the moment it's set for 400 degrees Fahrenheit, stainless steel. You've got the resistance of the coil, which is locked at the moment. Now, simply press the button up and down, and that changes the temperature. If you go all the way down to the bottom and or all the way to the top, it'll round robin into Celsius, and then you can make those adjustments. From here, you can click it 4 times, and you can set the wattage you want available for that temperature control, so you still have full control over that. Now, the third thing that you have to do is you have to press the plus and the fire button at the same time. Hold them down. And you go into a sub-menu here, and you rotate through the different items in the sub-menu with the plus and the minus. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find exactly what I want right away. There we go. This unlocks and locks that resistance. So that's the third thing you want to do before you actually operate it for temperature control. Then I can come back down to here, and you see a little arrow on the end there. That means get out of the menu. And there we go. We're all set up for temperature control. I can talk about that a little bit more. It does do a decent temperature control in regard to guarding against dry hits. Not necessarily a temperature control in regard to holding an even temperature all the way through, and I'll show you that on a graph. Now, the last thing that we've got in here is a menu, that the rest of that menu system. I'm going to press the up and down at the same time. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get out of this. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get out of there. Then I'm going to hit it 1, 2, 3 times, and go back to wattage, because there's, in that menu, there's one thing that's for wattage only that I wanted to show you. So, okay, now I'll hold the plus and fire at the same time, and we're into that menu. Okay, so the first menu item is what it's going to show on the bottom there, whether it's puff, okay, the time of the puff of the voltage. I like the puff counter. If you use that, okay, there's the number of puffs you have. You can press and hold the plus on the bottom, and it'll zero that out for you. Okay, so the next item, okay, it just says on and off, and that's your stealth vaping. If you turn that on, you can vape on there and the screen won't light up. So I'm going to leave that off. Next item. Okay, this is the one that works in power only. It says power, dura, and exit. So, okay, power. It's at 40 watts. You can set that for a little bit less or a little bit more than 40 watts for a boost. And then you can go into the duration, and right now I have that off because I don't use the boost, but you can set how much time you want that boost to last. And I'm going to go back down to off. Okay, and then over to exit. So that's your pre-boost. And here we have whether the timeout, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or 15 seconds. That's the timeout of the puff. Next up, we have the versions of it, hardware and firmware, and they're both on version 1. Next up, we have the actual battery voltage. It's sitting at, what, 3.98, I think, if I can see that at an angle. And then we can return. So there's our menu. That's everything there is to setting this up and getting it going. So next we'll take a look at some charts and see how it actually performs. Our first test up was done with the mod set for 75 watts. The true resistance as measured with a milliohm meter was 0.18 ohms. The mod read that as 0.12 ohms, read that a little bit low. It applied 3 volts, which is 75 watts achieved, and the rise time was about 10 milliseconds. Real nice flat DC signal. It's doing what it's supposed to. Variable wattage again, mod set for full power, 75 watts. True resistance of 0.27 ohms, and the mod reads again a little bit lower at 0.25 ohms. The mod put out 4.44 volts, and it achieved 78.8 watts, a little bit higher than what it says it can do. Rise time at 10 milliseconds, nice flat DC signal. Good job. Third test up. Variable wattage, once more, 75 watts, full power. This one's at 0.53 ohms. Mod read that again a little lower at 0.48 ohms. The mod applied 6.32 volts and achieved 79.8 watts. Again, just a little bit more than what it's supposed to put out. Rise time at 10 milliseconds. And a pretty nice flat DC signal. It's starting to bloom on the top a little bit. We're getting a little noise, but that can be anticipated. That kind of load, we're working that mod a little bit. This one's just a little bit different. It's variable wattage, of course, and the setting is at 40 watts. This reminds me of something worth mentioning with this particular mod. When you put in a new coil and it asks you, new coil or old coil, if you choose yes, a new coil, it will give you what it thinks is a nice wattage. And it gave me this, 40 watts. Okay, I tested it there. And we had the 0.48 ohms in there. It put out 4.48 volts. And it delivered 41.8 watts, just a little bit more than what it was set for. And the rise time was 10 milliseconds. You can see a little bit of a bump in the beginning. So at the lower wattages, you're going to get just a little bit of that. The mod was doing so well at lower resistances that I just had to see what it would do at a real high resistance with full power. And this was kind of a surprise to me. The actual resistance was 1.03 ohms, and it read a little low as always, 0.94 ohms. It delivered 8.76 volts Almost 9 volts. That's quite a boost for this little mod. There's no doubt about that. The wattage was 81.6 watts. Again, over what it says it can deliver. The rise time was pretty slow. Took a minute to get up there, 20 milliseconds. If you look at the top of the waveform, it's starting to bloom a little bit. You're getting some noise on there, but with this kind of a boost, that's to be anticipated. This is pretty impressive. Okay, bypass mode. Not really bypass mode. It isn't acting like a mech mod exactly. We're getting 4.68 volts out of this, so there's a boost on there. That is not the 3.9 whatever or 8 whatever that battery is at the moment. So it's putting out a constant voltage, more than like a mech mod would do with whatever's available on the battery. And the other thing with this is the rise time was quite a bit faster, so it does mimic a mech in that regard. Okay, here we are in temp control. I set the thing for 40 watts available. It read the resistance at 0.41 ohms cold, and it put out 4.68 volts, which is 53.4 watts, a little bit more than I'm asking for. Given its past performance, that doesn't surprise me. 10 milliseconds rise time. I set the temperature for 400 degrees F. It really didn't hold temperature. It kept rising. It got up to probably around 480 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you're going to try to control this thing as far as the maximum temperature, you're going to have to do that more with setting the wattage back and forth than the actual temperature on the front. However, it did protect against dry hits. I tested this the old-fashioned way as well. You can see it on the chart as it's working down through that e-liquid and reducing the amount of power that it's applying. But I tested it the old-fashioned way and basically over-vaped an Addy, vaped it dry, and it did protect against it. It put out less and less and less of a vape, and it did not give me a dry hit, so that was pleasant. Okay then, we are pretty much down to the talk about it, and I reviewed the filming that I did so far, and I think I got it pretty much covered, to be honest with you. It real nice little mod, real handy little mod, small little mod. I get about 150 puffs on a battery, so decent battery life on it. Very light, nice for the pocket. Puts out a real nice vape. From what I'm seeing of prices right now, there aren't too many places carrying it just yet. A few places out of China, somewhere between $31 and $41 for the kit. I think it's a real nice deal. I really do. If this is your thing, then I don't think you could get hurt with this mod at all. This is a nice deal. So, again, thank you all for watching. That's the biggest thing. Next, thank you, Eleaf, for sending me this. Good job on this one. This is a sweet little Addy, sweet little kit. It's nice. And, yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Hope you enjoyed.